The next step in the process is to mark out where we're going to drill the hole for where the handle is going to screw into this head. On the drawing, it's marked out as, I can't get it down here quite far enough, as 1.5 inches from the end. Now we're drilling it out for a 3/8/16 thread. So the tap drill size for that, we could go check the tap drill chart, but I know with 3/8/16 tap drill size is 5/16. So we're going to mark where we're going to drill the hole, center punch it, and then we'll go drill it. So on our piece, we have our square set at 1.5 inches. And again, all measurements are taken from our baseline at this end. Set it so the square is against the end of your piece. Again, set it so the square is square on the end of your piece. I had to stop for a second to go find my scribe. Scribe a line across there. Doesn't matter if it goes all the way to the edge, because all you want is the center. Once you have that marked, it's not a super strong scribe line, but I can see it. Then, same as we did to find center before, it's 3/4 inch material. Set the square to 3/8, put it on, scribe a line across that first line. And just like we did last time, turn it around, double check from the other end to make sure you're there. Now, with this one, if the light hits it right, you can see it. There we go. We have a single line. If it made two lines, again, center is between them. Either adjust your square and redo it, or just go in the center between the two lines. To center punch it, I come in with my center punch, and if you come in from the side and stand it up on your spot, it's a little easier than coming in here and trying to get your head wrapped around where that point is. So if you come in, line it up where they cross, and then one good hit with the hammer. Now it's center punched. It's got a good spot for that drill bit to start so it won't wander when you go to drill this. We're at the drill press. We're going to drill through with our 5/16 drill bit. Drop our piece in the vise. Now, two ways to make sure it's level in here, because if it's not level, you're going to drill a hole at whatever angle this is how far out of level it is. One option is set it right on the bottom of this. Trouble we run into is we're a little short this way, and we're kind of, to get it all the way over on there, we're very close to having that flat part on the bottom of this vise, and we don't want to drill into it. The other option is, I know this jaw doesn't move. I can line my piece up perfectly with the top of that jaw, and I know that is going to be perfectly level. And that's where I'm going to go with this one. We're going to come down, line up our drill bit with the spot we center punched. I'm going to give it a little drop of oil to lubricate that bit, make it last longer. Then I had to stop to go turn the power on in the shop. And a little light pressure down on the handle. You're not trying to force this through. Let the drill bit actually do the cutting. And I might even put another drop of oil halfway through. Now, before I get my hands in there and get covered with all those shavings that just come out of that hole, just take a little brush, Sweep them away. Now I don't have to worry about those. With any machining process you do, when you're finished, you're going to leave a burr. Be careful of them. They're sharp. The end where we milled, that's a sharp point. The back side of here, there is a little bit of a burr there. Don't cut yourself. Don't run your fingers across them. Now that we have our hole drilled 5/16, which is the tap drill size for a 3/8/16 tap, we're going to thread this hole. So we're going to hold it nice and straight, a little pressure down until it starts to bite. Now the first couple of threads of this are tapered so they don't cut full depth threads. So remember, you have to go further than that when you come out the other side. Now, once it starts to cut, first thing we're going to do is give a little bit of oil here to lubricate this. Again, it's going to make that tap have a lot longer life. And because as you're cutting the threads, you're displacing material, you're going to go roughly 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, back up, and you'll feel it get tight. It's hitting that burr that you just caused to curl out. You're going to go back till you break that off. You'll feel it all of a sudden get easy again. Go back to where you were, another 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, back, knock those chips off. The reason you're doing that is you don't want to try and cut across those. You don't want those burrs that you're cutting out to get stuck between the teeth on this tap and the threads you've already cut. What that will end up doing is tearing your threads up, and it'll make a mess and it won't work. And it'll be ugly. And I might put another little drop of oil down in there. I try and squirt it into the flute of this tap so it'll flow down the length of it. That's one of the purposes of those flutes, to give a place for the material you're displacing to go and to allow cutting oil to run down the length of this tap. Now this is only 3/4 inch thick material. It's not going to take very much. I'm just there. And just to make sure I'm all the way, once it's turning freely, I'm going to go a little bit past it. Then we'll just screw it back out. And there we go. We've got good threads cut into the head of this hammer. And then, just like with after we use the drill press, take a rag, wipe off the oil so you don't get it all over yourself. Clean it up. And I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up on the hammer or not. You can see the threads that we just cut into that hammerhead. If you recall earlier, we said that the finished dimension on this is going to be 3.5 inches. So, this is longer than that right now because we had to get the right angle on our taper. So all I've done is set the square at 3.5 inches. I'm going to hold it square against the end. Scribe a little line right at 3.5 inches. It's very small. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So as I'm removing this material, I can make sure I'm square. So same thing, small little line at 3.5 inches. And if you can see, wherever it focuses at, there you can see the line a little bit there. Hard to get the camera to focus on this thing, but it's not a lot of material. So we're just going to put this in the vise straight up and down, and we're going to file this off straight back and forth this way until we're down to that line on both sides, nice and square. Okay, we're in the vise straight up and down, and take our coarse file because we have a fair amount of material to remove. The first bit is going to come really quickly because it's very thin. Straight back and forth. Cross filing, remember you're at an angle, running the file diagonally. I stopped for a second just because there was a lot of pins stuck in that file. So, if your file, let me just zoom back out here for a second. If you notice your file is getting a lot of pins stuck in it, not cutting as good as it was, grab a file card. It's just a whole bunch of little tiny wire, like a wire brush, only they're very short, and back and forth on your file. It's going to pull those pins out of there, hopefully. If it's a double cut file, teeth cut in both directions, brush it in both directions. Make sure you get all the pins out. Flip it over, do the same thing on that side. Then it's cleaned up. It should work a little easier for you. Then back to work. Don't take too long of a stroke and miss. Getting close. And I'm going to double check from the other side too. See if I'm a little closer to the line on this side than this side. So obviously I must be angling my file a little, or I might be off in how I put it in the vise. And that's pretty darn close. Okay, now we're right on the line that we marked at 3.5 inches, but our drawing shows this with a rounded end. Right now we're square and we've got sharp corners on it. All we're going to do is take our file at an angle, and we're going to rotate it as we go to take these sharp corners off. We're going to turn that square shoulder round. Now I'm being careful not to take any off the end because we're already right on our 3.5 inches. Trying to keep the file flat to my piece so it's in contact all the way across, because if I start angling it, I'm going to take more on one side than the other. And I would say that's pretty good. And if you look at the end now, from this direction, instead of a square end, it's rounded. We may do a little bit more refinement on that before we're finished, but it's pretty close. The next step on this is going to be to try and make it pretty. So what we're going to do, the milling machine left a whole bunch of machine marks on both sides here. We haven't got a very smooth finish all the way around. What we're going to do is put it in the vise. We're going to file it. File all these marks off, make it pretty. But at this point, we don't want to start introducing marks into your material. The jaws of the vise have, and I will get you a little closer so you can see, they have a texture cut into them. The purpose of that is so the vise can grip better, so it can get a lot of traction on whatever it is you're trying to clamp. Problem with that is, if you tighten it really hard on your piece, it's going to leave an imprint of those little teeth in your piece. And if you've already done a whole lot of work to make this smooth and shiny, you don't want to put those marks into it. So, a couple of options. You're always going to use a pair of soft jaws of some sort. There's lots of different types out there. There are these ones. They're magnetic. They're just a piece of rubber. Put them on each side in the vise. Open that up a little bit. Put them in, clamp that piece down. These ones are great, except our piece, to have it up so that the top of it is above the surface of those, this pair wants to rock out. But that's one option. They will work. Another option, these ones. They're a piece of aluminum, magnet strip inside of it with a rubber material grafted onto the outside. Again, they're magnetic, they sit in there. These ones work great. These ones are starting to get the rubbers torn up a bit. They're not usually too expensive, but the cheapest option that we have found, and I'm just going to clean a little bit of dirt off of that, are these. What this is, it's just a piece of an aluminum angle cut off at roughly the length of your jaws. They just sit over it. I dropped one here. The whole point of soft jaws is whatever the material is, it has to be something softer than the material you're trying to work. So I'm going to put that in there. To start with, to do these machined areas, I'm going to angle this again so that I'm trying to file flat, because that's the technique I usually work on, is trying to do this flat. So if I have that piece pretty close to horizontal when I put it in there, tighten it up, my filing flat should work perfectly. As you can see, it doesn't take very long to file out all those machining marks. If you notice right here, though, my line is starting to get crooked. I must have been a little heavy this way and was taking a little more off there. I'm just going to readjust my pressure. Straighten that line back out. That side's done. So if you're using the technique I showed you and using the full length of the file as you're doing this, don't just sit there. Use the full length, full strokes. You get more done for the same amount of energy. It doesn't take very long to get rid of those machining marks. When you do this, be careful. That far edge is going to form a little bit of a burr from the material you're pushing over the edge. Take your file at an angle, knocks that right off. Any sharp or machined edge, do the same thing. Get rid of those sharp edges. When we finish, we're going to relieve all the sharp corners anyway. but just while you're working so you don't cut yourself. Same as that little end right there where we rounded it. Get rid of that little burr. Then, same thing here. There's a bunch of machining marks on this side. And I'm doing this all with a coarse file. I'm going to go until those marks are gone. There's a bunch of scratches in the surface. I don't know if you can see the little scratch still right there. Done. Now, clean off this stuff.